Hey YouTube, welcome to my channel, Coding with Colton, and welcome to my first video. I actually want to talk to you guys today about my journey into coding, my journey of the last 18 months, what you can learn in 18 months, what you can expect, what's realistic. I want to talk about all that stuff and pretty much just start at the beginning. I actually started off kind of not knowing what I wanted to do for a few years as I was trying to figure out college and different career paths. I did loan origination at a bank for like a couple of years, like 3 years, and that was cool, but it just was not like my forever thing, my career, what I wanted to do permanently. So I looked into medical stuff, and I spent about a year looking into that and seeing what I could do with that. And it just didn't make a lot of sense for me. So um, coding, wow, it's amazing. I actually have a brother-in-law who's a developer, and I talked to him about it. And after kind of dipping around in Code Academy and a little bit in Free Code Camp, I decided, hey, I want to do this full time. So basically a year and a half ago, I quit my job. I'm lucky enough to be in a financial position where I could do that. It took a lot of work to get to that point, and once I did, I basically just full time, focused on development and coding and teaching myself. And I honestly didn't know what I was doing at first. I pretty much had no idea what I was doing. I looked into boot camps, I looked into college, I looked into going the self-taught route to try to figure out what was going to work. At the time, I didn't really feel like um, going to college made a ton of sense because it was just so expensive. Like to get a degree is like 40 grand. I'm just like, yeah, I don't really know if the payoff is there, and to wait that long until I can start producing results and getting a job and stuff. And so, coding boot camps I looked at, but a lot of the ones that are in my area, I'm actually in Salt Lake. They cost, between like 12 and 15,000, maybe even more cash up front. And that's not really what I wanted to do either. If I was going to do something like that, I want to just pay for it up front or whatever. So I was like, that's probably not going to be for me right now. And I looked into, going self-taught. I was like, well, why not? That sounds like a good idea. And I'll just teach myself. So that's what I did. The first couple of months, I didn't really have like a very good structure, so I just seriously looked into everything. I was looking at like Python and C Sharp, and I was like, I'm gonna learn all this stuff, and I'm gonna learn everything, machine learning, and I'm gonna be a web developer. I'm gonna like do the whole world. And that lack of structure and just trying to learn everything all at once. It was good to kind of get a peripheral as far as what's going on, but it definitely, being a self-taught developer, or at least if you're starting out self-taught, that will slow you down because you don't have a set structure. And so, if you're thinking about doing this, my advice is to, learn X to do Y. So figure out what job description you want. If you want to be like a Python developer or JavaScript, Node.js web developer, do that and just focus on that one thing and really just get good at it. And so that would be my advice if you're just starting out. Pick one track, stay to it, be consistent. Once you get really good at that one thing, then move on. You wanna kind of go for the T shape. You want to go really really deep as far as like skill set in like one area so that you can find a job, and then you want to kind of go broad in several areas and just learn a little bit and just have a little bit of depth in that other stuff, but definitely better to go deep first. So I basically started out actually with Free Code Camp after kind of meandering for about a month. I decided, hey, Free Code Camp's the way to go. So shout out to you, Free Code Camp, you're awesome. Um, yeah, so Free Code Camp was great. You basically start off with they have like an actual like set track of things that you do. Free Code Camp is like an open source way to learn web development, and it's really cool because it is all free. They teach you materials and stuff, and they basically have you do like projects on your own. They don't show you how to do the projects. You got to figure that out. And you actually get to build stuff, and you'll actually like learn by doing. And there are also some teaching materials as well on there, which I thought was great. So yeah, so basically Free Code Camp is broken up into different sections. The first section is HTML and CSS. You can just build like some static pages with that. Honestly, you could do the same thing with WordPress, probably a little bit more with WordPress. And so I don't know if, really just doing that's like probably not going to be enough to get you a job, not even close. The next section is JavaScript, and there's like 300 hours of JavaScript. And then you have what's called front end libraries, which is like you build stuff with React, which is a JavaScript library, and it lets you like build web pages easier, pretty much. And so doing just the Free Code Camp front end certification takes about 900 hours. And honestly, it really does take that long to learn all that stuff. And so basically, I was just like, hey, I'm gonna work on this. I'm gonna get through Free Code Camp, and I did that. That's pretty much all I did was focus on that, and kind of did a little bit of learning on the side as well. And so built all my front end projects. Or I should say, I started on my front end projects and started learning React and doing all that stuff. Something that I noticed going the Free Code Camp route is that it will not teach you everything that you need to know. Like, you're going to go through it and you're going to be like, I'm missing all this stuff. And it's really only going to give you about half, but it is going to give you structure, and that's important. And so in order to get the other half, I figured out I needed to teach myself that stuff too. And so I actually found some good Udemy courses. There's lots of courses that you can do on Udemy to fill in the gaps that Free Code Camp does not cover. And so Andre Nagoya has a good course called Zero to Mastery. I recommend that. That's good. I did that. I know there's like Cold Steel. A lot of people are Cold Steel fans, and definitely I would imagine is just as good to do that course. So, but I recommend Andre's course just because that's the one that I did, and he basically takes you from knowing nothing, and to all the way to working on back end stuff. So you get a pretty good, you go deep, which is good. Yeah, so basically that's what I did. So after I finished my JavaScript section, I was like trying to do the front end libraries. So I was like, man, like there's just so many gaps in my knowledge. So I did Andre's course, and then I started going back and working on the front end course and those projects on Free Code Camp. And by that time, honestly, I was like 7 months in, is about where I was after of learning this like full time. So it takes time. I feel like people are like, hey, you can like learn this in like 3 months and you're good or whatever. And I'm pretty smart. Like in high school I had just a hair under a 4.0 GPA. So I'm pretty up there. But it just takes time to learn this stuff, and it's not easy. And there's just so much information that you have to learn. So just it takes time, be consistent over time, and that will produce you the greatest results. That's probably the number one piece of advice that I can give. Um, about that time too, I was like 8, 9 months in, working on some stuff, and kind of through a family connection, I was able to basically start interning somewhere, and that was something that I did full time, and I was basically just there to just get experience. And it was for a small business, and it was kind of like a virtual receptionist business, call center slash a type of a business. And there was one senior developer there, and it was going to be me, and I was basically going to work on their sign up process. And so the application was written in Rails and Ruby, and I knew nothing about Rails or Ruby, so that was like, wow. Yeah, that was a rude awakening. And then I had to learn a bunch of new stuff for doing the projects, because we were converting the Rails application over to JavaScript. So JavaScript on the front end and JavaScript on the back end with what's called Node.js. And so that's what we had to do. And wow, it was a lot of work. I'll tell you what, and I had a lot to learn. And so basically, I would just kind of do like a waterfall method with this other developer. He would give me milestones that I had to hit, and then I would just keep working through and like read through the Rails code and the Ruby code until I could basically complete the sign up process for the company. So that was something that I did. And so basically during that time, so like until um, I hit my year, and even like a little bit over a year, I was probably like 13 months in. Like that's what I was doing, was working on that and continuing to teach myself. And so I had my Free Code Camp certification at about 9 months, and then I just kept working through all that stuff for all that stuff for the sign up process. And so as far as like what you can learn and what you can do, it definitely takes time, and there's going to be a lot of problems that you're going to have to solve, that like tutorials and courses, and even like if you're doing school or whatever, are just not going to teach you. So it's very important to be able to problem solve. And so kind of like at my first year, that was where I was at. Like finished the Free Code Camp front end certification. I was interning, getting some experience. I had started actually building my own app that I 100% made all the way on myself, or by myself. It was called My Outdoor Trails, and it was kind of like you could look up trailheads and pull up mapping information for that. And so that was cool, and I had a database and stuff for some like simple logging, and it was cool. It was a really awesome project to be able to do. And about that time, I was pretty much ready to do like a full stack application like on myself, albeit still fairly simple, but still full stack, and it still had some pretty cool functionality. And then you can just kind of build from there. I see people doing like a lot of like small projects, and I think it's much better to focus on one big project that you can show off to employers, and focus on that and work on that. Maybe have one big project that you're doing at a time, and then a bunch of little smaller projects. Um, Something else that I also started doing as well, that I want to talk about because it's important, is getting obviously educated and continuing to learn. I actually started doing this. It's basically called BYU Pathway, and what it is, it's kind of like a stepping stone to college. And it's BYU is a religious school, so you have to like follow the honor code and all that stuff. But basically, what you do is you take a year of like introductory like stepping stone classes. You take one religious class, and then you take another class that's like math or English each semester. And then once you do that for a year, you can actually go to BYU, and those credits will transfer over. You get about 15 credits for doing that. And it's cool because it's cheaper to do that than to go to like regular college. So for example, after you do your pathway, and if you choose to go to BYU and basically go that route, I chose to go to BYU Idaho online, and they have an applied technology degree, and it's only going to cost me like maybe 8 grand total. Everything, literally everything, will cost me like 8 grand to get that degree from a really good school. And so that's something that I was actually also working on that pretty much that first year, was getting those basic things done, so I could go that route. And then so actually right now I take classes online through BYU Idaho, and that's all going to my applied technology degree. Basically, what it is they cover some different things with that degree. I'm choosing to do databases, programming like Java and C# programming. Um, will be some of the classes that I'll have to take, and then some back end development stuff. So that's basically what the degree is. So it's like basically software, which is awesome, and I can do it all online, and it's not really going to cost me a lot. Now, if you decide to go to like BYU or whatever, and you don't do BYU Pathway, you're going to have to pay regular tuition, and which will cost you an arm and a leg. So you're probably going to end up spending like 30 grand to get a degree instead of 8. So if you don't necessarily have to be a member to go to BYU Idaho, or to go to BYU or whatever, to do pathway and stuff. You have to pay a little bit more per semester if you do the BYU pathway. I think it's like $20 more credit hour, but you can honestly still go as like long as you're cool with living the honor code and some other stuff. You can look into it, and then you can pretty much just go and work on getting a degree online on the side, and it's not going to cost you a lot. So that's what I decided to do versus spending a bajillion dollars getting a degree doing something else. So that made a lot of sense for me to do, and so that's what I chose to do, and it's honestly been working out really well. So that was like my first year. Honestly, at that point, like I didn't like have like a job. Basically I was just interning and stuff, and so I just kept leveling up and working on my skills. And then um, probably about 15 months in, so like a year and 3 months in, I realized, like, hey, like, like interning's been great and all that, but like I need to like go get a job now, and I need to get paid, and stuff. So basically I started looking at, what I could do, and what my options were. And so I decided it'd be best to end my internship once I finished the sign up process. So I got that completed. I think it's really important to stick to things and stay committed, and finish things. So I did that, and I finished that process, and I got it all set up and good to go. And then I started just teaching myself again as much as I could, and then taking a few classes here and there, um, which was great. So now I'm like 18 months in doing this, and I've actually had about 7 interviews for six different companies, and I probably put in about like 100 applications. I think it's really good to have job experience on your resume that you can put, because that's all freaking companies want. They're just like, dude, do you have experience? Like, if not, like, don't talk to me. And so I haven't had any offers yet or anything, but I feel like I'm pretty close. I did have one part-time position. It was actually for a Rails position, and it was between me and two other candidates, and there was two openings, and the other two devs got it. I did not, but I was up in the running, so I know I'm pretty much at the point where I'm ready to get a job in development. It just is going to take some time. Um, Really focusing on one thing and really getting good at that is super important. And once you get that like core focus down, you can start doing other things. So probably in the next like month-ish or so, maybe 2 months, I'll start focusing on like another language, probably C sharp, because a lot of people in my area, a lot of companies in my area, that's what they want. There are some Rails positions, there's some Java positions and things like that, but there's even Python. But it's really important, I think, to focus on one thing at a time. And for me, that was JavaScript, and because that's what FreeCodeCamp has you do, and they kind of have you focus on that stack and that route. Something else that I've been doing the last couple months was I finished some of the backend sections up at FreeCodeCamp. I finished the APIs and microservices section, and that's pretty much just like making requests like to and from places, and getting information to show up on your page and all that stuff. And that's honestly stuff that I pretty much already knew, so that section did not take me a lot of time. It says it will take you about 300 hours, which if you're new, it totally will. But for me, I'd already been on the grind for a while, so I kind of got through that quickly. I'm working on the last section of Free Code Camp right now. I did one of the projects, and I'm almost done with the second one. Um, those projects and that back end section is like it's not written super well. So just take everything that they have you do with a grain of salt and just do your best is my advice to you on that. I did skip the D3 or data visualization section of Free Code Camp, and I will go back and do that once I'm completed with the last backend section. Just feel like that makes more sense because if you go in and type in like D3 into like Indeed or whatever and like look up how many job openings are in your area for that, there's not going to be a lot. Most likely, at least in Salt Lake, there's not a lot. So I feel like it makes more sense to focus on things that will get me hired quickly. So that's what I've been doing. I'm also what else have I been doing to get to this point? I did start a blog, pretty much just barely started that to get that going, and then obviously YouTube. I feel like it's really important to promote yourself and just get yourself out there, and also just help people. Like helping people. That's super awesome to be able to do. And so pretty much honestly, like after like learning development for like a year and a half, like what do you know? Honestly, not enough. Like it's you know enough to solve problems, and you can do so much, but it takes time, and it really takes a lot of focus on one thing. Kind of some like key takeaways for learning if you want to get a job, and you want to get ready. It's pretty much taken me like a year and a half to like get to this point. I know some people like it takes less, some people it takes more, but I feel like if you can focus on one specific technology stack, like if you can look at a job description and then work backwards and like literally only focus on that and like ignore all the noise, you will learn so much faster, and you will get to where you need to be. But if you don't do that, then you're gonna waste a lot of time. If I could have gone back and done it over again, I would have considered a lot more going to a coding boot camp that offered an ISA, which is like an income share agreement. It kind of depends on the school, because some schools are like, you go and, any job you get, they're like, hey, pay us, and you have to pay them like, a good chunk of, it could be like $1,000 a month or whatever. They basically take a percentage of your income. So most of the schools that offer income share agreements, honestly, you're probably going to end up paying like over a 2 year period of time, probably somewhere between 17,000 and like $30,000, depending on how much you make. So that can be good because it gives you some structure and you don't have to pay until later, but that still is pretty costly. Like still going to cost you. So either way, but I definitely feel like it will give you structure. So if you're thinking about doing that, you don't have the cash up front. That's still not a bad option to do, um, but definitely something to think about because that's definitely like a lot of money. And that's actually the reason why I decided to do the BYU path and to get my degree. It's a fully accredited degree. It's just from BYU, which is Brigham Young University. Um, is because of the cost. If you do the BYU pathway first, they give you the reduced tuition. Um, after, which is really cool. If not, you end up paying a lot more. Like why they do it that way, I don't know, but they do it and it's awesome. And yeah, it's great. So just something to think about. But again, you do have to be you do have to like follow all the like the rules or whatever, like the moral standards and codes. And if like that's not for you, like that's cool, like don't do that. Do your own thing, or look at going self-taught or boot camp. But that's just for me, it made sense for me to do that, so that's what I chose to do. And uh, as far as where I'm at right now, yeah, I'm basically just applying for jobs and just working on getting ready, um, and working on some additional like projects that I'm doing, that I'm pretty much just soloing right now, and working on getting that stuff online. And it's really important to pick a project that you're doing and work on that project every day and just be consistent with it, and just every day just steadily be working on that and be just learning every day, because this stuff, it takes time. I just see so many articles and things that I found online when I first started. It's like you're ready in like 3 or 4 months and all this stuff. And some people, like they do end up getting stuff, and like they have companies that are willing to give them a shot and stuff. But I kind of feel like a lot of that is dried up. Like maybe 5 years ago, 4 years ago, you could go to a 3 month coding boot camp, 4 months, 6 months, and like once you got done, like companies were like willing to hire you. But right now it's like, there's just, at least in my area in Salt Lake, it's so saturated with boot camps and grads and stuff. It's like if you're like trying to get a junior position or something like that, like the competition is like super fierce, and the skill gap is very, very high now compared to where it used to be, like a little bit lower. I think, just at least to get started, just to get going. Honestly, I just feel like companies were more willing to work with that. But as of right now, just because of just the change in the market, there's a super high demand for senior developers, and like having someone who has like a high skill, but someone that's kind of like lower down. Um, like the market's not really there as much. So you really have to focus on getting your skill gap up, and hitting those skill sets that you need to be able to, have companies consider you. And that's kind of what I've realized, up to this point, as well as being able to, expand into other technologies and technology stacks. After you get good at your one, because honestly, like this honestly, the stupidest thing that you can do is to just jump around to different things. You just have to stay consistent, pick one thing, you know, and just stick with it. If you get a job doing something else, cool. Then learn that thing for your job. You know, awesome. But at least when you start out, you need to focus on one thing. So that's super important. So that's pretty much my journey. That's my advice, um, and that's pretty much my story from doing this for the last little while. And thanks for watching this vid, guys, and have a good one.